The purpose of this conversation is to share with you some of my experiences with libraries internationally. But the real reason is I'd like to hear from you as being an expert in your area to see if you feel some of what I've learned in South Africa would be applicable to other parts of the world. So let me get in and talk a bit about libraries in South Africa. There will be differences with what you know in your country, of course, but listen for cues that might connect. South Africa had a fairly good library system before the end of apartheid. When apartheid ended, the Constitution transferred all libraries, public libraries, to the provinces. Now we've got 9 provinces, and in fact they did not want to take on libraries because now that would be a new funding issue that they need to deal with, so they were very reluctant to honor the Constitution. So what they did is, in most cases, they made a pact with the city and said, you cover the content, we'll cover the buildings. So there's real issues still with libraries having adequate funding to buy books and keep things vibrant. So it's a struggle financially to figure it out because everybody kind of wants to have the other really run the show. Interesting challenge. Now let me express to you some of the interesting things that I noticed about a library in South Africa. First of all, culturally. In South Africa at noon on Saturday, all the commercial activity stops and all the stores close down. People go home. The weekend is, full-fledged, and then Saturday afternoon and Sunday things are quiet. So I was in the northern province, Limpopo province. I went to a library there. I don't even remember exactly what took us there. And I was astonished. On a Saturday afternoon, when the town is supposed to be sleepy, everybody is supposed to be home, the library was totally packed. Not kind of full, totally packed. That blew me away. What's going on here? Is there a rock star showing up here today that everybody's here for? No, that's every Saturday. Come to find that in South Africa, especially if you live in a poor part of town, it's very noisy. People play loud, blaring boom boxes, and there's lots of flow of liquor and dancing and excitement and shouting and whatever. It's very noisy all weekend long. So for you to focus and concentrate and study is not easy. So if you decide to study, it's very possible that people say, don't you just lounge around here with your nose in books? Come on, we've got work to do. Get up. Do your chores. So there's not a real culture and environment of valuing and treasuring someone studying. So the only way for you to study is to escape to what I call the public study hall, the library. So the library has a very important function in society. Now, the problem when you look at a library is, there are a few computers and the internet access sometimes is not great, and the wait times are long and so forth, so it's really a bottleneck situation. It's not freely available to anybody when you need it and so forth. So realizing that the world is moving in a digital direction really fast, I've got the following proposal to make. South Africa is blessed with a good fiber network. And I would make the following recommendations. Number 1, declare all libraries a national asset. In other words, all funding for libraries comes from central government. No more arm wrestling between provinces and cities for funding. It's national government. Planning for libraries at the national level. It includes academic and public libraries. So, with that said, I'll tell you why that is really important. What you do secondly then is you bring fiber to every library. So every library has a very good internet connection, and you provide adequate Wi-Fi coverage in the library area. With that said, if you've got a really solid digital infrastructure so that every library is a digital waterhole, you can see what can happen in that case and the impact that that can have. So I'm going to give you some vignettes for you to understand the power that that will bring and how enabling that will be. And we think of social justice and access and these things, this immediately changes the game if we can get that done. I want to tell you now about UNISA. South Africa cannot provide adequate access to university education. There are many that cannot get in, that are eligible but cannot get in. But they can go to UNISA. UNISA is a distance education university. It used to be a correspondence university way back in the 50s and 60s, and it's now the premier distance education university in South Africa. It has students all over the world. It's got over 300,000 students. So I was in a remote part of Zululand and in a villagey area, and there was a public library. We visited there, took a look at the facilities, and now they've got their 4 stations and the usual stuff as I expected and so forth. And the public librarian was a young man. I asked him, so are you studying right now? Yes, I'm going to UNISA. I stopped for a moment and said, tell me about your experience. Well, once every 6 months we go down to Durban, which is a few hours down south, and then you've got to book yourself into accommodation there and so forth, and then for 2 days you've got lectures. So there's lecturers who do the circuit through the country on weekends, and you then benefit from that. So you're poor, you've got to make that trip, you've got to get accommodation and then attend those lectures. And I thought, if you had this plan that I've got accessed, in fact, the irony is the fiber optic sea cable enters the country maybe 5 miles from that spot where we were. So all the internet power in the world is right under your nose here, but you don't have access to it. So if this plan can be executed, think of it then. You can have a tablet, and think of today's tablets, really, really, really slick compared to the old tablets, 5 years ago. Today's tablets really do a great job, and you slip in a little card and you can up it by 500 gigs, just like that. Enter the university space, you download the lecture, the whole video, and say thank you. You go home and you watch the whole video. No more traveling to Durban, no more booking rooms for the weekend and so forth. You've got full access to everything the library offers. They don't need to mail you anything. All the books in PDF form are right there and available. Boom, you got it. You can do that on your phone in many cases. I'm using tablet as the example. I think sometimes it's a very nice platform, but many use phones for that same thing. So the library offers you that pipeline of information, of data, because you have to pay for data. And so this way you enable people to study and to do it. So schools in the area, same thing, can really work with the local library so that the library is highly used, because schools don't have libraries anymore. And so this library-centric spot for access to really design a country's educational plan from K through university and provide full access is then really possible. If you think of the concept of open textbooks, you say, okay, let's look at a curriculum for first graders, second graders, and third graders. Easy to come by. Lots of good stuff that you can set it up and really do a great job with your curriculum. Put all those materials online for free. And the kids can download it, and you can create wonderful apps around it so that kids have full access to that. And then the nice thing with phones and tablets, if you literally live in a home with no electricity, there's some wonderful options now with little solar panels to charge your phone. So ways to stay current is really, really possible. And of course, it could be pitch dark. If you're on your tablet, you're fine. You can see, you can access, you can do everything you need to do. You're not dependent on the house's grid and the system's grid. if you've got your own way to charge it, sometimes just when there's power, or sometimes using solar in extreme cases. So that's where I'm going with this, is that we first of all fix the educational digital infrastructure by providing, number one, declaring all libraries a national asset to absolutely realize all libraries need to provide to the same standard and do not leave it to somewhere down the line for people to figure the money and how they do it. That the implementation will be unequal and will not serve everybody well. But if you serve it at the national level, you place a phenomenal emphasis on the value of education and in access to information. And once you do that, then you can provision those libraries. And the most key thing that I feel needs to happen is to bring fiber to the library and federally, from a national perspective, address that issue so that every library is totally solid. Even here in the States, I was traveling doing research on libraries, and I was in a smaller town, and I got there just a little too early, and I realized it's another hour before they open, and I had a few more to see, so I had to work with some people outside. And I saw some kids all on their laptops sitting outside. I said, "What's up?" "Oh, no, we're just here to access the internet." So you see, even in the US, that this is a reality for some. They come and sit just in the vicinity of the library, sitting outside, doing so. And of course, there's some really creative ideas of how you can use outside and having your Wi-Fi outside of the building to fully bless everybody with that access and make that work well. So that's my idea that I want to leave with you. And I'd love to hear and engage with you to see in other parts of the, especially developing economies, to see how we can address this issue of libraries in that space, because I find often it's overlooked. People look at building dams, freeways, all kinds of commercial stuff. But if we solve this problem, you set a foundation that will serve your country for generations and really profoundly change the possibilities, and obviously make things so much cheaper. Because you can go completely digital. All this thing of distributing textbooks and this kind of stuff can all be collapsed into a national open textbook policy. Everybody contributing, coming up with a great book, and everybody uses it for free, and really developing that culture. So there we go. Love to hear from you. Thank you.